Welcome to Washington Football Week with your host, one half of that dynamic duo, Sean Spencer, and South Carolina's finest, Will Kramer.
Don't play us if you're undefeated.
Where we celebrate past success while looking to a bright future. There's a youth movement in Washington, and they're ready to take the reins, led by Myers.
Play aggressive.
It's a new day, new dawn, no longer the laughing stock. It's time to take them. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is your boy, Sean Spencer, one half of that dynamic duo that is Let's Talk Football. And you see who I'm with. You see my guy right there, South Carolina's finest, Will Kramer. What up, Will?
It's been a long time, Sean, but we back. We back.
Yes, sir.
It's been all season, but we back.
It hasn't. It hasn't.
I think we talked about week 1, week 2, and then season's over.
Yeah, right. Because I think the last one we did the one with Brian Robinson, and then I think we previewed the Dallas game with Mike Stout, and then I think that was it.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So that was October 19th was that game. Yeah. So mid-October, and then we lost it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we apologized for our absence. Both of us had work and things come up, and then on top of the fact that the season was so rough, it was so rough, and technically it's not over yet. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Washington Football Weekly. What's going on, Nathan Snell, in the comments?
Yeah, like Sean and I are going to be talking about the season, but Nathan, put your comments in, because listen, man, we don't have much of an agenda. We're just talking about some feelings. So, join us.
Yes, come chat with us. I feel like at some point we're going to hit on your favorite topic, Nathan, which is what is our identity? Because in some of the future stuff we're going to talk about, we really got to kind of address where we stand and who we are and X, Y, and Z. And you already know, he said, I got comments and I got feelings. So yeah, definitely share this out. And let's wrap. Appreciate all the rest of you guys that are here. We are back. But look, Will, let's not belabor the moment. Let's get right on into it. Let's get right on into it. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, we are 4-12. We are third in the NFC East, only because there is a team that is worse than us. And it's a team, the only team in the NFC East that we swept is the New York Football Giants, who I believe have the first overall pick at this point.
No, the Raiders do, because they beat the Raiders.
The Raiders.
But,
that's right. Because there's talk about Mendoza potentially going to the Raiders. Don't do that to that boy. Don't do that to him. All right. But look, let's get on into it. Will Kramer, coming off of the NFC Championship, riding as high as we did, I don't know that I expected a fall from grace.
No.
That seems to still be descending. What are your thoughts, man? Talk to me.
No. I mean, you and I had concerns about the season, about the schedule, about who we playing on, the quarterbacks we were going to be playing, and the overall schedule. And so we were kind of saying like 9-8, 7, we might have 7 wins, 4. So, but for me, it ended so quickly. I mean, Jaden getting hurt in week 2, Dietrich Wise getting hurt, Will Harris getting hurt, and then that kind of snowballed into the defense getting worse and worse. And then when Dorrance Armstrong went out, and then Jaden getting hurt again. And it reached a point where I gave up on the season. You talked about it. Work was piling up. Our games were terrible. It was a fun 3-hour break on a Sunday to still put on the clothes and watch the game. But we started looking pathetic. There was that stretch run against the Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Seahawks, the Lions. 4 games in a row where we were getting beat by more than 20 points every time. And it just got pathetic. And I did not see us bottoming out with DQ and the staff and all that they had going on. So it was a little bit of a surprise, like a shock, I should say, how bad they were this year. What do you think?
Yeah, no. I mean, I completely echo your sentiments. Yeah, the season was tough. And you know, Will, you've been talking to me for several years, but definitely this offseason, it started for me before the season. When we could not get that whole contract situation done with Terry, what did I keep telling you in the season? It's just, I just have a bad feeling. I got a bad feeling because he's not practicing. He's not getting in there with Cliff, but more importantly, Jaden, that's his guy. This is your number one, and you're not getting any reps with him through the season. Never mind the injury, because he wasn't, ready. That could have happened anywhere, but still going into the season like that, it just had this weird feeling. You know what I mean? And I'm not advocating or saying that Terry doesn't deserve the money and everything like that. Go get your bag. I get that. But it just was weird coming off of being 1 game away from a Super Bowl, then the optics of it, I need my money. That's more important than me coming in and working out with a team. Cliff said it was halfway through the season, maybe even 3/4 through the season, before we had our full offense in practice working together. And then we didn't really have that because Jaden wasn't there. You know what I mean? I mean, he was in for a little bit. But like I said in the open, to come from where we were a year ago, where we were genuinely 1 game away, to this, you can't, the injuries, what can you do about that? But to your point, you get to some of those games, you get to, even when Mariota came in, it's like, okay, and then you beat the Chargers, and it's like, okay, all right, we can do this. And then I'll never forget being at that Bears game with Nick, and just the way things were going. We were down, then we came back, then we got back up. Luke McCaffrey gets a touchdown. I'm like, okay, we're doing it, we're working it out. But there are certain things, like when we were up and then all of a sudden we fumbled and we're giving them a chance, they're coming back in, and you could just see that tide turn. And I remember saying to Nick, you guys are this year's Washington Commanders. You guys are the team that we had last year. And then for it to come down to the end like it did, we lose that game. And what have we seen? Washington has descended. Chicago has jumped up to the playoffs. And then Dallas, we killed. KC, Seattle, Detroit. I mean, just on and on and on. I said this to you before, Will, before the show. We've dealt with losing seasons. We've dealt with going 1-8 in the season, in 2020, and then we ended up coming back. We've dealt with having struggling seasons or even middle of the line seasons. Coming from where we came from to this was a tough pill to swallow, man. And I got to be honest, I think we saw some of it coming. We didn't really totally address depth, maybe in a way that we were happy with. I might be alone on this, but I've always said that I think we were a little quick on getting rid of B. Rob because we didn't have an adequate answer. Now, we didn't know if Ekeler was going to get hurt, but still, I don't know. I know a lot of people were calling for McNichols or Rodriguez or anything, but the coaches clearly weren't on the path for that. So it just seemed like we didn't have an answer when the holes started coming out, and we just couldn't fill the holes. And then issues that we had last year, they reared their ugly head, Right. We went from bend but don't break to break, Well,
I feel like I heard it, Scott Jackson, who's in the Virginia Beach area, mentioned it about the roster construction. And I thought he brought up a good point. He was like, why did Adam Peters think that he could take the New England approach after 1 season and be like, this is my number. If you're not within my number, I don't want you. And like, when you talk about depth, and like, I'm not saying this guy would have been a 5-win difference, but why did we let Olamide Zaccheaus go to Chicago for
right.
less than 1.5 million a year when you could see how many times did he make first downs for us on the team and keep drives going? Dante Fowler, we don't know, he came out publicly in March and be like, this is disrespectful. So what did we offer him? Now, did we replace that with Von Miller late in the season? Yeah, late in the offseason? Yeah, we did. But it just kind of seems like after one successful season, Adam Peters had this, like, this is my price point, and it's like New England used to do. If you don't hit it, you can hit the road. We don't care. And I don't think that we're at the point of our roster that we can literally be like, take it or leave it type situation. Right. I think we need to be adding players. Adding more talent. What I kind of noticed this year, yes, depth was a big part of when we had some devastating injuries. You lost Terry, you lost Jaden. You're not gonna replace Jaden with Marcus. He can keep the things afloat for a little bit, but when we started to lose on defense and get injuries, and a guy like Will Harris goes out, and they say the communication goes awry when we lose both defensive ends, especially when Dorrance Armstrong went out. Now we didn't get any better in the run defense, which they all wanted this whole offseason. But beyond that, we didn't have the magic that we had the year before. You talked about that Chicago game. Who fumbled the ball to lose the game? Jaden did.
Yeah.
So you got, that game, the game against the Falcons, and I'm kind of jumping ahead with one of our questions about, like, how far away are we? But, like, you got the Falcons game that was winnable. You had the Dolphins game, 16-13. We couldn't make kicks, and you ended up cutting your kicker after that. We went for a 2-point conversion to win the game against the Broncos because why not? You're not making the playoffs anyway. So, they could have extended that game. There are a couple games here where we might have been closer to that 7-8 wins that we were kind of anticipating, as opposed to 4 wins, because we're not going to beat Philly. I don't care who they run out on next week. We're not going to beat them. Nope. There was just this the magic. We didn't go for it on 4th down at all. Like, I feel like this season, let's continue our drives just really didn't seem to be happening. We just never seemed to have that clicking the entire year. And maybe it goes back to, like you said, training camp. Terry wasn't there. Noah Brown got hurt. So your best receiver was Debo, who's not a number 1. And then you got guys like Luke and Jalen Lane who aren't ready for prime time to lead things. And what did we do to help the team?
Yeah.
We did nothing. The year before, they brought in Noah Brown after training camp to help out. If you're Philly in this situation, Philly's making trades.
Right.
We don't have a lot of assets in the draft, but he's making trades to get talent in here. We didn't do anything. And so we went into week 1 hoping Terry would be okay, hoping Noah Brown would come back soon. And Noah Brown didn't come back until like week 14. And then he got hurt in week 15. So it's like, I don't know, things just didn't seem clicking this year.
No, they didn't. And like I said before, I'll definitely harp on that schedule or not the schedule, but on that roster, because I feel like, to your point, we played with house money last year. We came out of nowhere. Nobody expected us. And I feel like instead of improving on that, like you said, they just said, oh, well, we can still play with house money. Jaden he can be the difference in what happened. And I think that became an issue, but also, and again, I'm jumping ahead too. I think we do need to shine a little spotlight on the coaches. You know what I mean? Like, last year, we know how great, some of the catches, some of the defense, some of the way that we played. But I think, to your point, that we weren't going for it as much. Our play calls weren't as aggressive. We weren't hitting the deep balls. Now, it's hard to do that when your main guy is out, and it's hard to do that when you don't have your full complement of wide receivers or even your full offense at practice and everything of that nature. So I understand they might have had to maybe dummy things down or whatever. But even Jaden, because he heard a lot of that chatter, don't run. He seemed to even be protecting himself a little bit, and maybe let's get it out quick. Let's stop all these things. It just seemed like the guys were kind of off. And then the coaching staff was kind of in there just like, okay, you like waiting for them to get it, waiting for them to pick, okay, you guys will figure it out. And it's just like the adjustments didn't happen. It killed me What up, Cameron? Saying front office failed us. And okay. This is what we're doing.
Don't
This is what we're
don't
doing.
get Sean hyped up.
This is what we're doing. Yo, I hope Sam gets a Super Bowl win. That's all I'm gonna tell you, Ben. If he gets a Super Bowl win for Tampa,
no, how
in
can you
Philly.
dare say that? He's in Philly.
Listen, Sam is always a Tar Heel. All right.
I'm gonna buy you some Kelly Green gear and say this is what you can do. You can go
Never.
join one of their podcasts.
Never that. Let's go. Oh man, but I mean, look, the blame could be point. You can point the blame in a lot of different directions. You know, we didn't fill our depth appropriately. We let a couple guys walk appropriately. You know, we obviously we should not have done that. You know, there was a lot of things that you can say that might, you know, lean this way or that way. And I think at the end of the day, it was just a collective. The injuries hurt. The sophomore slump part hurt, but the best ability is availability. So if you're not on the field, Jaden couldn't even have a sophomore slump because he couldn't even get enough games under his belt to do that. You know, so then he ended up was right, and then it was almost like it was a rookie. Hey, right here, Joe Witt. I don't know if I'm not saying necessarily he needs to be gone. We'll talk about coaches a little bit later, but I do think they were a little late to the party in figuring out if Joe Witt was the right move. I think last year we got carried by our offense, so we kind of overlooked some of the issues that reared their ugly head against Philly. We saw how Philly did us.
So I was actually thinking about that when we were talking earlier today about are we going to be able to do a show. I started thinking like, all right, so did we mess up in the roster construction of the defense, or did the offense score enough points last year that it didn't matter? The defense didn't change much because the same problems of last year's defense happened this year with run game and getting torched in the passing game. You know, Marshawn Lattimore was terrible another season with us, you know, and it didn't matter if it was Lattimore, if it was Forbes, if it was who else was the guy? Oh yeah. You know, out there, BSJ doing coverage. You know, we were just getting torched, you know, and that's why I kind of started thinking, I was like, well, maybe it must have just been the offense masked the problems. And so as we talk about, you know, some of the coaching staff, I think that comes down to like what they were not making. They haven't made the adjustments that we need them to.
Yeah. And it became
I got one thing that's going to make you feel good though.
What you got?
I really kind of relate our team very similar though to San Francisco. I don't think we have the same depth as they do, but San Francisco is either on and they're a Super Bowl contender, or they have been injured and they're out of it. And this year they're back on. You know, they had some injuries that they've, you know, overcome, but they're back being a Super Bowl contender, but they weren't making the playoffs last year. And 2 years ago, they weren't in the playoffs either. And so that's where I'm kind of thinking it's a little bit of like, to make me feel better, saying like, this can be overcome with an aggressive offseason and getting some folks healthy. We can be back next year to being in playoff contention pretty easily. I'm going to let you chat.
Oh yeah. Look, where was it? Yeah, no. And I'm sorry, I'm reading these chats. Nate was talking about scapegoating, and then Nate also said that clearly it was Adam Peters. That seems like scapegoating a little bit. Cameron said, I think our secondary wasn't as bad as people made it out to be. I would kind of disagree with that. I think I will agree with this point though. Our pass rush was horrid. Yeah, we definitely. And then we didn't have, what was it? The depth, and clearly didn't address the areas of weakness. And yeah, that's what we were saying. I think we felt like we could come in here and just rely off, you know, what Jaden was going to do or what these guys, how good this offense was, and we didn't have the same offense point blank. But yeah, no, you hit it on the head. Look, I think we should go into
coaches
right here.
Okay.
Oh, I was gonna say, where do we go from here? Because sure. I agree with you. I mean, I think that this could be fixed if I think we rely too much on maybe what we felt was working, or what, some things that had played out, and maybe that, but a different schedule. We had a target on our back. Everybody got our best game. We got their best game because we were in prime time. How many games throughout this season?
Yeah.
I think what happened to us was a shock. A lot of people were kind of sitting there like, whoa, wait, this is the same team that was in the championship. But I do think, like you said, if we make those necessary moves and address the moves we make, which if we know that's exactly what they do, but they seem to do it a year later. What do we clamor about the first year they were in house? Adam Peters, Dan Quinn. We need O-line, and they didn't get O-line. But what they do the first thing last year, they got Tunsil, they got Connerly. Maybe this is the year that they say, okay, we see how far we can fall. All of our jobs are potentially on chopping block. Maybe we do. And I think, honestly, there's only one way we can go, is up. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
We still got the players. We still got, the main pieces. Now Terry is still here. Now Jaden, if he gets healthy, we can get a run game. I think we go up from this, but I also think if we can learn from these mistakes that we've made and how to protect the quarterback, how to get the ball in his hands, how to have a running game, figuring out our flipping identity. I think these coaches are smart enough to do that. I think this bodes well for us. I've always said I don't want just a 1 year success. I want a dynasty. I want year after year. And to your point about San Francisco, we look at them and their injuries. And if you remember, Mac Jones started 3-4 games that year, and they didn't, things didn't fall out. Mariota did the same thing for us, but we just couldn't help him along the way. If we can keep this together, I feel like we can move up. Philly, they're going to be good for a while. I don't fully trust Dallas, and New York is still a dumpster fire right now. I really feel like our trajectory, this might be a little roller coaster situation, but I think our trajectory is moving up if we address what we need to address this year in the offseason. What do you think?
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I think we're going to see them be a little bit more aggressive this offseason than they were last offseason. And I don't fault Adam Peters from saying, bring back Zach Ertz, bring back Bobby Wagner. Let's go with what we did. We made it to the NFC Championship game, so you can kind of understand that. And then they said, okay, we need to get stronger, bigger up front to stop the run game. We can do that. But I think we weren't very aggressive. We never really went after the pass rush last year. When we let Dante Fowler go, between Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler, there were only two, and they were very serviceable. I mean, Fowler had over 10 sacks. Armstrong had 8, so you were getting pass rush from them. But we didn't address every single hole. We had to wait until the draft to get a starting corner there. We had our questions about Lattimore, and clearly they were wrong. So that's a red flag. How did they go into the season thinking that he was going to be good enough? And he clearly was not. But I do think they're going to be aggressive because all three phases of the defense, all three levels of the defense has to get improved. And I think they realize that. And I think they realize that clearly, that if Terry's out, we had no other options. No one could get open. Debo couldn't get open. They blanketed him. So I think they're going to be aggressive enough to say, we got to fix and help Jaden because he's in year 3. He's going to be on his rookie contract. This is the cheapest time for you to maximize him. So that's where I just feel like there are, they made some strong moves. Our offensive line on paper is better than it was the year before. And Absolutely. So you are helping out your quarterback. They brought in a wide receiver too for cheap to help them out. So they are doing some things to set up their quarterback for success. But like you said, I mean, the big one that I'm really curious to is what do we do with our running game? Because none of these guys on this roster can be relied on right now.
I agree. Cameron said, I think the biggest thing is that we have going for us is guys actually want to be here and the morale is still high. People are still playing for Quinn, and Jaden is developing into the leader of the team. And this would be, look, this takes time. This stuff takes time. I think another thing I think is that we were all fooled by that early success that we had. We all thought this was the year that we'd have the success after having a year of struggle. So that meant that was an issue for us. But to your point, I think they kind of see what they have to do now. One of the things is getting everybody in house. You got to have all your people, or it's not going to work clearly. But the other thing is, let's, like you said, let's be aggressive. Let's address the issues now with this. So that begs the question: should we have given Juice and Forbes more time to develop? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think one, they were from the old regime of Ron Rivera and all that, so they kind of had a lot of that old mindset with them. But I just don't think. I mean, I know they're doing well at where they're at. Or what are they at? San Diego. I think Forbes is at San Diego.
Rams.
Yeah, okay.
Well, they're both in LA with both the two LA teams. Yeah.
Right, and I think we got to take into account who are on some of those defenses. You know what I mean? With San Diego having another piece, obviously you got Derwin James back there, so that covers up some holes. And then that Rams defense is very underrated with Jared Verse and Fisk and some of those guys on that D line getting to that quarterback. Look, at the end of the day, if you want to help your quarterbacks, you get a pass rush.
Yes.
Our cornerbacks, you get a pass rush. One of the reasons why our secondary had so much trouble this year is because we couldn't stop the run, we couldn't stop the pass. So offenses moving at will against us. So it's easy to blame the corners and everything. And I'm not giving a pass to Lattimore because I had an issue with it last year, but at the same time, I think we do need to look at it for what it was. What do we always talk about? Complementary football. And if that D line is not helping, we already know we have an aged Wagner in the middle. Luvu last year, for all of his excitement and energy and everything, this year it seemed a little overzealous. He had a couple times where he jumped off sides a little bit too much. I don't know if you saw in that, what was it, the game against Dallas on Christmas Day, we trip up the quarterback, Dak falls down, and all of a sudden Luvu is so hungry that he runs in there and hits him, and then it's a roughing the passer on a third down that gives them the drive to keep going. Mind you, I mean, we lost by 10 or whatever, but we could have easily, that if we stopped them there, I think we were down by a score at that point. And that game, we were close with them. So it's just little things that were different from a year ago. But I think coming into this next season, you see how high you can go, you see how far you can drop. I think this is where we really start to come together and make that real evaluation. Who are some of these people? I like, you've been Will talked about McGee and Kenny get in. I know the injuries and everything. Let's evaluate. Let's truly evaluate and let's go. Make those cuts and make room for other people to come in if that's the case, because I think we're past the point where it's like, okay, I'm gonna give them a chance. You've had two years going on the third year, with some of these guys. Now's the time. Stick and move. What Hooper get off the pot. What is it? You know what I mean? Like, if we're gonna move on, let's move on. And let's add in those pieces, because what we have right now, which is the duplicate of what we had a year ago, it's not working.
Right. Well, Nate, stick around because I do have a comment on, or I have a response to your what could Joe would have done. But regarding St. Juice and Forbes, I think you were looking at a different scheme. Dan Quinn wanted to run a press man, and Forbes doesn't have the body to do that. He needs to be playing zone. And he's played well, great on him that he's seemed to be playing very well for the Rams. I'm shocked, honestly, because he is a twig.
I am too.
But, so I think they recognized pretty early that they were not going to be the personnel guys. And I was so done with St. Juice the amount of times he grabs players. And I don't know if he's not doing that in for the Chargers, or I really can't speak on that. But I don't think they gave up on them too early. Where I think it was, I don't think they replaced them well enough, and to the point where, the real big question when we're talking corners is, what are we going to do with Sanders still? Because he has 4 interceptions this season, and again, halfway through the season, he had to go to the outside, and he doesn't look bad out there, but he's also undersized out there. So, this is that time they really need to evaluate where does Sanders still fit best and stick him there, because he didn't look very good inside early in the season, and he's looked a whole lot better on the outside, but is that really the best place for him?
Right. Because realistically, when he's going up against A.J. Brown or CeeDee Lamb or George Pickens, some of those guys, they have the size advantage on him.
Yes.
And Samerstill, for how tough he is, for his heart, I love it. He's a leader, but he, like you said, he's a smaller dude, and sometimes he gets bodied. That's
Everybody in NXT
exactly.
has a tall receiver that can out jump him. That he can have the best position. They may just high point.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's just football. So that's something we got to address. We didn't talk about Amos. Amos was playing, fairly decent, then got hurt and was out for the rest of the season. So, how does that play into this coming year?
It's kind of like an incomplete on a grade for this year. Because he was showing flashes, but it was not like he was shutting people down.
No, and that's something that I think that is something that needs to be addressed. And a lot of this is on the defense, and like you said, the running game is something we got to address. I'm not as needy on the wide receivers because I feel like once we get back full health, maybe pick up somebody in the draft or in free agency, we can figure that out like we did last year. You talked about we got Noah Brown a couple weeks into the season. We can, and we had Olamide Zaccheaus. If we can get some vets or kind of work that out and people that can help him, I'm good with that. Now, I do want to ask a question. It's a little funny. You and I had this off-camera talk. One place that I do think we need to touch on is tight end. Because Zach Ertz, we saw that gruesome injury he took. Mm-hmm. We already knew he was coming close to the end of his career. Who knows if he keeps moving? I know if I am not on Facebook, but I know you have been on Facebook, and there's people that have been suggesting certain tight ends and things of that nature. Is that a major hole, or would you sit here and be confident with the Bates and Sinnott and maybe Ertz, or maybe picking somebody up random?
This is where I think it's going to be really interesting to watch what they do, because off top of my head, I would love to have the dude from the Ravens come down here and go after him. But part of me wonders, and this Nate can help out with this, how good of a blocker is he? Or are we sitting there showing our cards too much to say, you got it, this guy's not blocking, he's going out for a pass? I think we've seen some things out of Sinnott and Bates that are showing, especially Sinnott's done some things the last couple of weeks to say, okay, well, actually, maybe he's got some ability. He's just been stuck behind Ertz. And you also have to remember, Ertz is going to get looked at quicker than a Ben Sinnott on the route tree, on the combinations. And there's been times that Sinnott is open and Jaden didn't see him, or Mariota didn't see him, or last week Josh Johnson didn't see him. And so, with more time, he may get a little bit more trust to be for someone that they look at for read number 2 or read number 3. But I almost kind of think, do they need to get someone who can do a little bit of everything as well? Just I think Sinnott and Bates are part of a rotation, but I think they need somebody else that can come in there and not make it so obvious that we're passing the ball. That has the ability to do a little bit all. And whether that comes through the draft or if that's a free agent that they can go after, that's what I think is going to be interesting. So, Nathan said likely isn't a run blocker. And he is absolutely intriguing for the pass game, and I'm not opposed to it, to how important the Zach Ertz role was. But it's kind of just showing your cards maybe a little bit more than we want to be doing.
Right. And to this, you don't need a box office tight end to have 100%. I think, though, Nate, to steal a line from you, and we talked about it at the beginning, I think we need to really address what is our identity. Because if you look at Bates is a blocker, like you said, and you look at Sinnott, he's a wide receiver, he's more of a receiving. So it is kind of obvious when one comes in and we need somebody that. Well, first of all, we need to figure out what we're doing. And that goes to run game. We need to, because last year there was a lot of read option. There was a lot of Jaden running, but also we had a run game that went along with it. So there was a little bit of it froze the linebackers. This year, nobody, especially once Eckler got hurt, nobody was concerned with that. So we kind of went away from the run. But if we look back when Cliff first came here, what did he say? He said, we're going to be running some form of the air raid offense. That's not anything that Washington has done in years past. So I think we need to address what is our identity in Washington. Are we going to be run first, play action, do it like that? And if we do that, okay, then we need some tight ends that can hold it up on the line, but not just tight ends that can do it. We also need wide receivers that can block. we already know that Adam Peters from San Francisco. What is the number one thing that they focused on? Or no, it was more the Rams that focused on it. Their wide receivers can block. Shanahan has his wide receivers that can block too, but he also has his fullback. He has his tight end. These guys are all integral parts of this offense. Are we going to have it 5 wide or 4 wide and a tight end and kind of run it like that? Or are we going to try to run the ball and control the clock? Because clearly at this point right now, our defense is not doing us any favors. So on Gabe, whether that's whoever, we need our offense to at least number one, score some points, but give our defense that sidelines. And if we're running, if we have a 2nd and 1 and we run 2 straight passes or something like that, we can't muster up a daggone yard on the ground. Right. That's a problem. That's a big problem. So we need to figure out what is our identity.
Well, and something as we talk about this, Nate, I'm going to push back on you because you said it 3 times now. I'm going to let you know we have a 1st round pick, a 3rd round pick, a 5th round pick, and I think 2 6. You can't blow this team up and improve this team to the draft with those picks unless somebody slides in the the draft so well that we can get a great trade back. But that's like you're saying, you got to get the tight end in the draft. I don't know what round are you getting that tight end that's going to help you out, because I think in the 1st and the 3rd, you're going to have to get an impact offensive player and an impact defensive player, if not going 2 defensive players in your 1st and 3rd round pick to shore up some of the holes in the defense. So that's where I don't think we have the assets that this offseason, but we do financially in free agency. I'm not saying you go out on every single position and pay the top guy, but what I'm saying, we can bring in guys. We didn't spend a lot of money on a Dorrance Armstrong and a Frankie Louvu, and they made instant impacts. We could be looking for those types of players to come in as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just towards that tight end conversation, you got to look also, this isn't a year for tight ends, and then there are not many years for tight ends, but you had the year with Michael Mayer from Notre Dame a couple years back. You had the year last year with Brock Bowers. Even your year, Nate, where you got Isaiah Likely, you guys also got Charlie Kohler from Iowa State that is a legitimate tight end, and that's who I would kind of maybe on the sneak if we can get him from Baltimore. And I mean that's all on what I saw from college, and that's been a couple years. So who knows what offense we're running. So that's going to be interesting. But no, Will, I'm saying rebuild this team from the ground again, grab more picks in 26, 27, and free agency.
No. You got 2 years with Jaden on a cheap contract. You got to go after it. Yeah. I'm not trusting
we don't have the time to do that. Yeah, we don't have time to trust it, because once Jaden gets to that time where he's getting his money, and we might be on borrowed time with him, because like I've told people, he had 4 or 5 years in college. Now this is his 2nd. We're working on 7 years of top ball. I mean, this guy who's mainly about his legs and his mobility and things like that. If the injuries start becoming an issue, that's something to address. I mean, you're dealing with it right now, Nate, with your quarterback, with the back injury with Lamar and the ankle and all that type of stuff. You realize that he might be able to play, but if he doesn't have his wheels, that could be an issue.
So like I'm saying, I pulled up some things of some time. Like I'm looking at a guy like Cade Otton from the Bucks is someone that I'd want to bring over, where I don't think he's going to cost a whole lot, but he can do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, Nate, it's not time. I don't think it's time to rebuild. I don't think it's time for that. I think if we address some of the holes, I think we definitely make that move. Cade Otton, this is funny. What do you think about that boy in at Atlanta? That tight end in Atlanta.
Don't even go there. Don't even go there. No.
Yeah. Isn't Jaden eligible for extension after this year?
You gotta ask Ablo that. He's the contract guru.
Yeah. So, but look, let's move on and let's go to what you were talking about, the coaching staff. A lot of people have been talking this. Obviously Adam Peters is in charge of doing stuff on the roster, but these guys are also involved in the roster construction. after the first year, we kind of said, hey, we know you guys seem like you know what you're doing. This year, I'd question more than I'd be confident. I've heard people at certain points, obviously, when Jaden went out, there was a strong tendency that was saying get rid of Dan Quinn. Cliff, I've had Arizona fans tell me this is what Cliff does. He struggles midway through the season. Joe Witt Jr., obviously, his job was he got kind of demoted. Do you make moves on the coaching staff, Will, or do you go one more year and just say everybody's kind of on like a probationary period?
Let's start offense, just so we kind of not going back and forth a little bit. I think you need to take a whole big look at why can we not run the ball for 2 seasons in a row? Do we have an issue with our offensive line? Do we have an issue with the schemes of our run plays? Excuse me. Do we have an issue at running back, coach-wise? Or is it personnel? One of my favorite hires of this coaching staff was Anthony Lynn, because he's been a head coach before. He's been a longtime offensive assistant, offensive coordinator, all that kind of stuff. I was so thrilled to have him. But let's think about these past 2 seasons and how bad our running game has been. Essentially, when Austin Ekeler goes out, our running game goes kaput.
Right.
So that needs to be really looked at to try and figure out, why is this not working? What you keep talking about, what is the identity? What is going on that for 2 seasons now we cannot run the ball? Do we need to look at that offensive line coach? We gave him a pass last year because we said, hey, he actually did a pretty good job with a unit that doesn't have some great players, but they've got a stalwart at left tackle. I kind of feel like Tyler Badass was not badass this year. It just, is there something with him coaching our offensive line that's not getting? You mentioned it's 2nd and 1 and we can't get a first down. We've gotten stopped on multiple 4th downs, and we can't get just a little bit of yards. And so I just feel like we need to really take a strong look at this coaching staff, where they've been there for 2 years. There's been some struggles. We got to identify what those struggles are to find out if there's coaches that need to go. What do you think?
Oh yeah. For me, starting on the offense, Cliff said it midway through the season. We haven't had a practice with the full offense, and if you don't have all your guys in there, the chemistry, it's hard to create that chemistry on offense. The fact that then Jaden the 2nd year, and then things of that nature, and then going to the O-line like you talked about, we had Cosme that obviously had the major injury and then came back halfway through the season. He still's got to get his legs under him. We had injuries on that O-line, but to your point, the pieces are there. So at the end of the day, it does start to come to, when you look at our roster, that is one of the places that I feel like I'm more confident in. And you do have to go to that coach and say, what's going on? You know what I mean? Because we have had running backs that can get it done. JCM can get it done. Ekeler, when he's healthy, obviously. B-Rob, I know people had issue. These guys are moving the ball. They can get it done. Even when we didn't have the best the offensive line. Now we do have a decent line, but we're still having issues. And the fact that our quarterbacks are still under duress. That is something that I think, we do need to have that conversation with our offensive line coach and our running backs coach and say, hey, look, what's going on? What's going on? I also would say, let's go to the special teams coach. Tressway, obviously, MVP, Pro Bowler, my guy. But since 2020, how many kickers have we had? Since last year, how many kickers have we had? You know what I mean? Are we close to 10 daggone kickers since last year? Like and something's got to give with that. I don't know if that's something that the coach is talking to the kickers about, or if that's just the kickers getting in their own head. But I'm seeing guys leave us left and right and then go elsewhere and have success. What's his name? Mr. Gonzalez just hit a game winner over the daggone Rams last night. We let him go. McManus for Green Bay. Now I understand the reasons why we didn't bring him in, but look at the success he's having elsewhere. I just feel like special teams could be a major role because we already know we have a secret weapon in Tress. We gotta address that. We gotta address what is going on. Why are we have certain pieces on special teams, and that's probably been the most consistent that we've had. We've seen move Jalen Lane scoring a touchdown. We've seen things like that happen, but the kicking game has been a nasty injury. And Jake Moody, he did good. If we can keep him, that'd be great. But there's things things we need to address on coaching.
I kind of feel like I'm gonna go against you on this one.
Okay.
Special teams is the least of my concern because of our 2 Pro Bowlers. They both came from special teams, and that is Tressway and Nick Bellore. And then you look at the other guys that are good on special teams. What's his name? Number 35. Name's escaping me right now. Percy Butler.
Yep.
He's down there on special teams making plays. Reeves, until he became a starter, having to start. Reeves is part of it. So I look at a special teams coach a little bit more on kick coverages. I don't know enough about coaching to know, is a special teams coach fixing kickers? Because there's kickers missing kicks all over the league. I agree with you that we've had a turnstile that needs to be stopped. And we really did get hurt by the McManus thing. And last year we were so far behind the 8 ball. And clearly Nate really does not like Adam Peters because we brought in the wrong, Matt Gay as the signing of the kicker was not the solution this year. I'd be curious to see what they do in this offseason, between Jake Moody, who has not been bad, but what have they seen in practice to know, is he good enough? But I'm not concerned with Larry Izzo right now. I feel like we've got bigger coaching holes than that.
Very true. Very true. What do you think on defense? I know everybody's going to talk Joe Witt Jr. and how he got demoted. Obviously, the secondary has struggled, but it just seemed like it was every part of the defense. The D-line struggled. The linebackers had to do too much because, the running backs and the linemen were getting to the second level. And then, they were able to throw it all day over us. So our secondary was constantly under duress. Is that a situation where you say, Joe, hey, it didn't work out. Sorry. Send you moving? Or do you keep with Dan Quinn? Because once Dan Quinn started calling plays, the defense looked like they had a little bit more life. What are you thinking?
Well, you just kind of answered your question right there with the last statement. The defense has been horrible this season. Joe Witt tried everything. I'm not going to knock him for not trying, and I have big hopes, and I had big hopes of him. I'm really disappointed that it didn't work out, but he was an atrocious defensive coordinator to the level of don't come at me about any hate towards Jack Del Rio, because Joe Witt was even worse than Jack Del Rio was, if not on the same par, if you're going to, which were just as bad as Greg Minotsky, which was just as bad as everybody else. He tried. He mixed and matched, but nothing worked. But when Dan Quinn took over, Dan Quinn had a better pulse. Yes, we ran a lot more zone out there, but we were not getting torched as easily as we were under Joe Witt. So no, he's got to go. But this is where you got to fault Dan Quinn. You got to be critical of him on this by saying that, why did you let it get to this point? You're listening with the calls. Dan Quinn had a different philosophy and how he ran the defense than Joe Witt did. And he's a little bit more aggressive with some of his blitzing and all that kind of stuff, to the point where, why are you letting your team be coached this way and the game be called this way if you're going to do something completely different than what your guy's doing? So I don't think Dan Quinn should be staying on as defensive coordinator. I think he wants to kind of be more of a CEO. So I think it's going to be a really interesting hire in the offseason as to where, can they go get the guy from Chicago, Al Harris, who they wanted the first time and Dallas wouldn't let him, or who else could he get? But I think we do need to look at some of the position coaches there and mention something about, are our linebackers progressing? You know, we love Ken Norton Jr., but you know, Miggy's on the field, so maybe they are. But we also got nothing out of Madrano, got nothing out of Ali Cajo. But more importantly, let's look at our secondary. Do we have guys who some of those coaches came in there with some good pedigrees? And our secondary, all of them, like how did Quan Martin regress so much this year?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you really got to take a big long look at the defensive coaches and say who should be here in 2026.
And that's a big. I think that's a big ask. What's going on? Nicole saying, "What up, Sean and Will and Nathan and Cameron on YouTube? Happy New Year! Don't worry, 2026 is looking up. Absolutely, absolutely. Washington and the Saints championship game next year. Let's go. Craziness. Does that make me crazy? I've been on with Danae in a while, so honestly, no. I think that's huge. Now to that point, and I know you are not. You and I are not out on Adam Peters. You know, we're giving him the out. But to your point about Quinn, as you're the head of this, you brought these guys in because you felt that they could succeed. To your point, he the call. So you allowed this to happen this long. I'm not one to say move on from Dan Quinn because I still believe in what he, and kind of like Cameron said that the guys believe in him. But I do have to question your judgment on certain things. Is it you're giving to the doubt? You're gonna keep giving them an opportunity? How long is that gonna, I mean, is that going to hurt you in the long run because you keep trying to give people a chance? People out of here, but if it's not working, and clearly it has not been working for the last, it kind of comes back, doesn't it? Mute.
I was really choppy, so you keep going.
Yeah. Did you go back on mute? Oh, yeah, no. I honestly think I think this is one of those situations where, and again, I'm not ready to get rid of him this year, but I do think that Dan Quinn is one of those that needs to know that, hey, listen, I got to get it together with these. I got to figure out what's the move, and even on offense too, with Cliff struggling. I think you have to maybe light a fire under some of these guys and say, hey, look, like we had success. Now you realize after this year, you can't just show up and things are going to work out. What can we do? Nathan said, but how many other coaches can make that argument about? Are you talking about on Washington?
I have no idea what that question is.
Yeah,
I have no idea what that question is. I think you know what I need to see happen. On Tell the Truth Monday, I need Dan Quinn to look his coaches in the eyes and say, that fourth down call, why did you call that? This alignment on defense, why did you call this play? Like there needs to be a lot more accountability by him, especially on defense, knowing that he knows what he can do and how he would call it. And I think that's probably going to be a challenge for him this offseason is finding the guy. He had a lot of trust in Joe Whitt, but finding the coach that knowing how successful he is as a defense coordinator. He's gotten 2 head coaching jobs because of his ability as a defense coordinator. So he wants to turn that over to somebody, but can they call it the right way? Or as we talked about off air, he needs to say, this is what I want to see from you. This is how I want my defense to play. And he's got to get someone that is able to do that.
Yeah. Now, Major said, I mentioned that Dan bringing in his guys, which he absolutely does. Is he doing that to his own detriment? I mean, I'm all about bringing in my buddies and having that stuff. But if stuff's not working, at the end of the day, you got to make a call and say, hey, look, this ain't doing it. But I think to your point, let's be clear. Everybody's being held accountable. Because if he don't hold them accountable, front office is going to hold him accountable, and then we'll see what happens.
This is the truth.
Yeah,
what Cameron put is actually the truth. There's a lot of no one's really talking about Cliff Kingsbury as a head coach right now because they're like, would you hire someone who just won 4 games? But if you actually look at the stats, and I don't have them in front of me, up until like 2 weeks ago, he actually, sorry, I got something in the back of my throat, was having a pretty good offensive year, even though our offense feels like it's been garbage from a stats perspective. They've been better than what people realize. Yet, yes, Joe Witt was the man in charge of a bad defense for 2 years in a row.
Yeah. Cliff as head coach, absolutely not.
It's probably going to happen.
People have been talking about it. People, apparently last year that was one of the main concerns that we had is Cliff going to leave us for a coaching job? And we were so excited that he came back, but I guarantee he has one more good, and not even good, just decent year. People will want him. People like his offense, and let's not forget, he had success in Arizona for even if it was brief.
That's what Scott Jackson brought this up. I thought it was really good talking about it. And people were saying, well, everyone has kind of connected. Well, what if Cliff goes to Cincinnati? But Joe Burrow doesn't run the offense. He's had 2 quarterbacks, Cliff has, that he's got a specific quarterback that he has success with, the Kyler Murrays, the Jadens. And so he's not just a plug and play coach to do better. But I like the fact that there's a good chance he's going to be back next year for year 3 with Jaden. But I don't think he's done as a head coach if a good opportunity comes up.
Yeah, he can definitely do it. And I think another thing, going back to the identity and stuff like that, what do we've noticed? Like you said, when Eckler is in there, we have success. When he's not in there, we don't have success. If you go back and look at that team that he had with Arizona, who did he have? David Johnson, who had like those 2 or 3 years of success in fantasy. He was the best running back. And then he had Connor after that, who was a quality running back that can hit great in the screen game and things like that. When you look at McNichols, maybe he's a little bit more, but if you look at Rodriguez, he's not that type of runner that Cliff mainly has. It is the Eckler. You know what I mean? I think that was the issue with JD with Brian Robinson, why they got out, because he wasn't that guy that can get open in space and do all that type of stuff. So, I think honestly, Cliff, we need to figure out what are the pieces that are needed. Sean Payton, and look how the Broncos are doing now. Some players like certain coaches and coaching styles. Great point, Nicole.
Very much. Like Dante Fowler coming last year and how well he did. Yeah. All right, Sean. I think we get the other question we had talked about was the players. And I don't know if I have an answer, so I need to have you answer it first so I can think.
Who is your favorite? Well, you already know where I'm going to start. You already know where I'm going to start. I'm going to start with the only guy that has ever consistently been great in Washington over these last several years, and that's Tress Way. I'm sorry, guys. Again, every flipping year, Tress Way comes in, does what he needs to do, and he just makes us look respectable, at least on that. And that's why I can understand your position on, I don't think we need to necessarily address the special teams as much, because Tress Way and that kick coverage team and how they work together, we talk about chemistry. He has just been consistent year in and year out. He flips the field for us. He definitely helps us. And look, we've seen in the championship game, give him a fake punt and let him toss the ball across the middle. He can get the job done. So, I mean, Tress is always going to be that guy that I'm going to shout from the rafters. This is my guy, because he is consistent. He's humble. He shows up day in and day out. And everybody can say this player, that player. Show me somebody that's been more consistent than Tress over the last 7 years in Washington. He's my guy. Yeah, he's my guy.
I love that answer. And I think I was wrong in the speculation. Do you remember last year how many times they would bring in right-footed punters at practice? And I kept going like, are they trying to replace Tress? Like, are they saying here, we don't need to be paying you $5 million a year to a punter. We're going to go ahead and get somebody else. And it might literally have just been the whole, we want this guy to field punts from a right-footed kicker, and ours is left-footed. Because he's been outstanding. And the part that we talk about when it matters, and most times it doesn't, is he's a terrific holder as well.
Yes. Absolutely. And real quick, Will, to this point of the come on man, what my stat that I've used over the last couple years is, and that I was glad I didn't have to use last year, was that Tress Way, we know it's a good day for him when he outgains our quarterbacks. Tress Way, he had, what is it, 2,400 yards, punt yards, and both of our quarterbacks combined had about 2,800. So Tress is, look, consistency. All right. We couldn't get it from both the quarterbacks. Obviously, injuries hurt that, but consistency from Tress.
Sean, I don't understand that stat. I don't want my punter to have more yards than my quarterback.
Listen, I get
That's
that.
not
a good day. I agree with that. But if he's producing, I'm okay with it. I got to see a bright spot, Will. I'm back to the spots where I have to see bright. I have to see some kind of sunlight.
The stat that you need to focus on with Tress is how many times does he pin the opponent inside their own 10-yard line?
Very true.
He's excellent at doing that too. All right, so it took me. I needed to hear you talk the whole time, so I could figure out who do I actually.
28, by the way.
28 times.
28 times. Yep.
Yeah, he's a beast at that. I had to think long and hard about this, but I'm going to go with the guy who showed us this year that he needs to start next year, and Cameron's going to like this answer. It's Jordan McGee. And I don't think we should be surprised by it because they loved him in training camp last year, and then he tear his ACL.
Yeah,
he hurt
down. He was some kind of injury.
He got an injury during the end of training camp, and he missed all of last season. Yep. So it's no surprise. What I don't know is where, because they've talked about, this is going to be Bobby Wagner's replacement. That scares the living daylights out of me. Not because I necessarily feel like Bobby Wagner needs to be back. I don't feel like Jordan McGee is ready to take over as the Mike linebacker. But we have to get faster on defense, and that is something that he's got. And he plays a little reckless. He sometimes, he's supposed to run left and he runs right because the line starts going to the right, so he starts following the ball, but that's, it's experience right there. He's got speed, and that's of the pieces that we have for next season. That is a great starting point because we have to get faster on defense. We have to get more explosive on defense, and we didn't have that. So he would be the person that impressed me the most. And it took them a while to get him on the field, but now they've had him on the field at least for the last couple games when Dan Quinn took over in primarily a 4-3. And so I would say that McGee is, God, that's awful, Nate, that is awful. If Bill is your MVP, oh Lordy, that shows us why we're
shout out to my guy Nate. Shout out to my guy Nate. Nate hit me up after the Dallas game or whatever. Where's the last game where JCM hits that big 80-yard run or whatever, and he said, "This is the guy. This is the guy." It's credit to you, hey Nate. He's got burst, he's got speed, he's got a lot of things that people were asking about. But to ask a 7th round pick to be your number 1 overall running back,
it's wrong. It's wrong.
I don't agree with that move that they did. I think we were doing that just because they were trying to be right on something. But that's your pick. Respect. For me, I said Tress. Another guy I got to say, and I've told you, Will, I've told you all our fans, all the people that listen. I am willing to hold myself accountable. I am willing to say when I was wrong. Okay. I was the one this offseason that was saying we need to get rid of this man because he ain't doing nothing. But I got to shout out Luke McCaffrey. Sir, you impressed me on special teams. You impressed me as a wide receiver before you got hurt. I got to show you your respect. Now, he didn't blow the doors off, but he also didn't. He did far better in year 2 than Diami. You know what I mean? And he was a threat. He looked like he was actually producing on the offense, especially when we struggled this year. So for me, and part of that is because I was so adamant to get him out of here before. I think when you had all the injuries and had all the things that we were struggling with, he was one of those lone bright spots for me.
Now, Nate, I've got a podcast coming out, just a little segment here that's going to address, but I don't disagree with you, that statement right there about Bill can do things the other running backs cannot, but I'll expand on it more so you'll get a chance to hear it. My number 1 priority in the offseason of who we need to re-sign So this is the person who impressed me the most this season, Marcus Mariota.
Woo!
And
Yes.
I was a Mariota hater before he came to DC, and now I'm at the point where we can with Jaden has gotten out every single season. The past 2 seasons, he's missed some games. Mariota is a must sign because he can keep the ship afloat and moving forward. So you have to give him more money than what he got this past year. He's worth everything, and with the mentorship too. That's a big part of it. Dude he's a good dude to have on your roster.
That is key. I'm gonna double. I'm gonna second that one for sure. Nate, respectfully, I gotta disagree with this one. And again, I wasn't on board in the beginning, so I've never really been truly a fan, but this year he struggles mightily. I mean, look, we know what we have to go up against in the NFC East, which is 2 games with Neighbors, 2 games with CD and Pickens, and then 2 games with AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, and he has struggled. Did Lattimore not have a pick in the KC game? Is that a deciding factor because he had a pick in the Kansas City game? How did he do in the other games?
How many penalties did he get in the 6 to 8 games that he played for us this season versus how many plays did he make?
Yeah, Nate, add context, like you always say. Add your context. To be calling out one game where he had an interception. What did he do for the rest of that game? Because if I remember correctly, we were within a score going into half, and then we got blown out through the air in the second half. So let's talk about that part too.
Was that the game that they started targeting him too at the end of the second half to get yardage, get penalties?
I think it might have been. I know they did it in Philly.
I feel like they did.
Over the years, they've done it in Philly, but again, I have a bias because I was out on him before he came in here because I just didn't understand why, if the Saints were sitting rebuilding, why are you giving up your quote unquote lockdown corner? And it's because he couldn't stay on the field in his best years.
Well, they
most
were
likely.
rebuilding.
Who knows? Huh?
They were rebuilding. They had to get a new coach. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Did you see that play that Chase Young made?
Oh, okay.
Do you know that Chase Young has over 8.5 sacks this season?
Really?
Yeah.
Is that more than he's had with us?
Yeah, season high, career high. I'm going to go back and look at all the drafts, like all the draft picks, and see what their seasons, because I saw James Pierce has 8.5 sacks for the Falcons, and there was all this talk at the draft time about how they were talking about him being a head case and blah, and dude produced 8.5 sacks.
Hey, that was one of the guys I was talking about. I didn't think he was going to drop that far, but that's definitely one of the guys that I was talking about. Look, let's do you have any more favorite players?
I don't.
All right, and let's end it right here. How far away are we? Will, we went from what 4-13 to 12-6, back now to 4-12, potentially 4-13. Are we close? Are we far? Is it too early to tell? What do you think?
I think we'll be back to being a playoff contender next year. Yeah, I think they have money to spend on getting some guys in here, getting some pieces. I think you're going to see a little bit closer to the year 1 of Adam Peters, where he spent money, he brought in starters. He didn't overspend a ton, but he brought in starters to come in and play. And I think it's going to be a really fun offseason because of it. So I don't think we're that far off. I think we'll back to be a playoff contender next year.
Oh, I agree. I think we're far closer to being back than we are in the other direction. And look, if you look at it with some of the moves we're talking about, we have our quarterback, which is something that we couldn't say for years. We now know we have our quarterback, even though I am deemed a hater. We have our main wide receiver in Terry. If we can keep him healthy, keep him on the field. I like keeping Debo. I like keeping, just because of how much of a threat he is. It's so funny. You're a South Carolina guy and you're ready to get rid of this guy. Like, I love Debo, man.
No. Yes, if you are using your number 1 overall pick on a wide receiver, I'm fine keeping Debo as a wide receiver 3, but he's not a 2. He's too much of a gadget player.
That's what I've heard.
I could have told you that going into the season, though.
Right. Nick Cole said closer than the Saints. We feel for you, Nicole. We definitely are. We feel for you, though. No, I honestly, with how that O-line is set up, I do like some of those pieces in the secondary. And back to Cameron's point that he made earlier is that, we didn't have we couldn't stop the run. We couldn't get a pass rush. So our secondary was vulnerable all year long. But with Amos, with Samerstill, we keep Harris in there. Quan, those guys, they get back, get healthy. Maybe Dan Quinn takes over to play calling. I think we're fine there. Luvu, I trust. If we can keep him in-house, I don't know how many years left we got with Wagner, but if we can keep his mind there, he can help teach the young guys. He can bring in a man. We got to get that D-line. We have to get a D-line, but I think we're far closer. I think we are far closer than we are away. And I do think we're competing for the playoffs a year ago or to next year and potentially competing for the division.
Oh, all right. So let's go there. Bobby Wagner, are you bringing him back?
Oh, man. So he's got the wheels of like Ertz on defense. Like he's not any of these young fresh running backs. They sit here and run an arrow route or they run an out route. He's not keeping up with them. But you cannot replace his mind and you can't replace his productivity. He's still one of the top tacklers on the team. I think he's coming close to a record. This guy is instant Hall of Famer. Him at this age is far better all around than some of these young guys they're thinking about bringing in. And I understand that he's not that fast, but he can read it and call these things out when he sees them because he's been there so long. So I would give him one more year. If you want my personal opinion, I would give him one more year because I still think, to your point about bringing in McGee or some of these other guys, we still need to teach these guys up. You know what I mean? And build them up to potentially take that mantle because they're not ready yet. Would you keep them?
I don't know. I can't answer it. I literally can't because here's the thing. I'm with you on everything where he's still a very good linebacker on running downs.
Yeah.
And he's so good at leading the defense and getting people lined up. The problem is, unlike on offense, where you could have a pass rush specialist, Von Miller, or you could have a tight end that is my pass catching only, my move the chains guys. You choose when you want to bring them in. Mm-hmm. If you have Bobby Wagner out there, they can just throw it on first and second down and pick him apart. It's not like where they're gonna he could be hidden for first and second down because they might run the ball. And then on third down, you pull them off the field because you know you need to go faster. Like when we used to play video games and you would throw on your two linebacker, your nickel coverage, and you'd get more speed on third down. And, it's not – the NFL teams, they are going to exploit him in the pass game. And so that's where it's really hard. Like, I don't know if you can. So I was just trying to pull up, linebackers next year, and I don't know as a free agent, but if you bring him back, it's with the idea that you are mentoring your replacement, whoever that is, whether it's McGee, whether it's a free agent that we pick up, whether it's we draft somebody, and we will be pulling you off the field if they are exploiting you. Like there has to be this, and I don't know if he's going to be fine with that. So I don't know.
And that's the other thing, kind of where it's like they made the call. Like with the coaching staff with Joe Witt, like, okay, you're not making what you do. Can they make that call with Wagner? Can they say it's not working, man? We need to get somebody in because if I'm not mistaken, he came here because he thought we had a shot of winning this thing. So obviously this is not the year that he expected. And if you're coming back next year, now if we're in the hunt, maybe he makes a decision where he's like, hey, it's for the better of the team. But pride is a dangerous thing. So who knows, because he's still that Hall of Famer, man.
Are you bringing back Von Miller?
That's that. I was just about to ask you that. Yeah, man. I don't know, man. Unless he's, because what is he getting? He's 1 year for what, 6 million, and then he had like 4 million in incentives, or that's something like that. I don't know, man. It's more of a gimmick for me. He's not the guy he used to be. We all know he's going to come in for his handful of plays, and we know it's on passing downs, or and he need him to come do it, and he's doing it. He's getting to the quarterback. So I mean, he's doing what he needs to do, but at the same time, I don't think he's not on the field enough. We have to be in that type of a situation for him to be able to pass rush. And if we're getting gas in the run game, I don't think they're leaving him in for that. So is it worth it to pay a guy potentially $6 to $10 million to be in for a handful of plays?
So I feel like here's the challenge. Von Miller has gotten more sacks than Jacob Martin, but Jacob Martin has flashed, I think, more than Von Miller. And I think next year, if you bring in, like, I'm right now off the top of my head, I'm like, all right, let's sign Jalen Phillips to be our starting defensive end, our edge guy, opposite Dorrance Armstrong. And then Jacob Martin could be your third down pass rush specialist. But Miller's got more stats. I'm with you. Like, is it worth spending $6 to $8 million on a third down specialist?
Right.
At age 30, 7?
Well, that's the other part. We're dealing with borrowed time with him, with Wagner, with Lattimore. These guys are older, and then you got, God forbid, the injuries like with Lattimore. These guys aren't going to be able to recover as well. Look at Ertz. But I think, we might look at it differently. I know we've talked about this, and we've talked to our buddy Ab about this throughout the season. Daron Payne wanted to last from the Rivera.
I got the question for you. I got better question for you. Daron Payne's going to get cut. We everyone knows that. If we had not signed Daron Payne after his one season of becoming a pass rush force, would we have Montez Sweat or Chase Young on the team today?
Ooh. I think we kept Montez. I think we would have kept Montez. I mean, or that would be who I would have kept. I don't think Chase. He wasn't doing it, man. I don't know. Obviously he had that first year, but even then he only had 7.5 sacks. On a crappy team that somehow made the playoffs. But that second year, and definitely after the injury, and him taking plays off, nah, man. Montez, I would have paid Montez what he's worth, because you see him in Chicago. He's giving them pressure off the edge. He's helping solidify that D line. So I would have kept Montez and got Daron out. Would you have kept Jonathan, or would you have tried to get him out as well?
9.5 sacks.
9.5. Yeah. He's doing decent in Minnesota.
Could Jonathan have been better if he didn't have Daron near him? And could you have kept him? I don't know. Yeah.
Probably thought that Alabama connection was going to work.
Yeah. I think Montez would have been the one we should have picked. Especially since he had that 2023, the year we traded him, he had 12.5 sacks.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about him. Montez was one of the lone bright spots in some dark days in Washington. You know what I mean? Like, he was always the one that gave us some kind of hope on, at least on D, because we knew he was balling out. We knew he was playing. So no, I would have definitely kept Montez for sure.
Yep.
So, but look, ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you think. Well, how far away are we? And what are your thoughts on this season? What are your thoughts on everything that you have seen to come to go up shoot so high to come within a game of the Super Bowl to then fall so far to the point where we're second to last in the division, top 10 pick. What are your thoughts? Are we close? What are your thoughts on the season? What surprised you? Who's impressed you? And where do we go from here? Are we close? That's another one. Are we close? So, hey, look, we appreciate y'all sticking with us, hanging out with us for this time. Ben, Nicole, Nathan, Cameron, all of you. I got to shout out to a special friend of mine, Samantha Snyder, is watching all the way from near Charlottesville. One of my close dear friends. I've known her since back at the womb. Like we've grown up together. So she's definitely amazing person. So she is in watching with us. So appreciate all you guys joining us, tuning in, talking a little Washington football, and set off season, ladies and gentlemen. And so it was one thing about Washington fans, we love the off season because we normally do great in the off season.
There's always next year.
There's always next year. Let's go.
It's winning off the field.
That's right. Yo, so for my guy, Will Kramer, it is your boy, Sean Spencer. This has been Washington Football Weekly. Before we go, we wanted to wish you guys a belated Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Hopefully 2025 was good to you. Hopefully 2026 will be even better for you. I will be probably in bed by like 8 or 9 o'clock because I got to work at 6 the next day. So one of the reasons why we did the show early. Yes. So my man, for my guy Will Kramer, it's your boy Sean Spencer. We appreciate y'all tuning in. Definitely check us out. There's gonna be a lot to talk about with this offseason. And last game, Philly. Do we stand a chance? Are we gonna?
No.
If
I think Sam Hartman's gonna start. If they start Sam Howell, do we stand a chance? No. But Sam versus Sam? No.
Sam versus Sam. Oh, really quickly. Sam Hartman. Do you let him go after this year?
Yeah, absolutely. He's done.
Yeah. I was about to say, we know he has a better career in probably a DC fashion or so. Yeah. Shout out to you, Sam. Shout out to you, buddy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're out of here. Peace. Appreciate y'all being with us.
Welcome to Washington Football Week with your host, one half of that dynamic duo, Sean Spencer, and South Carolina's finest, Will Kramer.
Don't play us if you're undefeated.
Where we celebrate past success while looking to a bright future. There's a youth movement in Washington, and they're ready to take the reins. Led by Fire.
Play aggressive.
It's a new day. New dawn. No longer the laughing stock. It's time to take